continue to not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their gilt rings. Right, the bouncer's gilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day.
This is Umar Ahmed for IFL TV. After an exhausting week and weekend away in Wrocław, Poland, Alexander Usyk stopping Daniel Dubois in 9 rounds. But I think the main talking point, of course, was the 5th round. A lot of controversy around it. Was it a legal shot or not, Gareth?
I think the referee was right. Much as Frank Warren disagrees, Don Charles, Daniel Dubois, they've called it a robbery and an injustice. It was a borderline decision. It is borderline. Were his shorts high? They were. But it was below the belt. Was it below the navel? You can't absolutely tell in the moment of the punch. There's a lot of different videos that have gone around. I think it was borderline, and Luis Pabon of Puerto Rico made his decision in the moment, and that's why he allowed as a low blow, and that's why he allowed Alexander Usyk the statutory 5 minutes to recover. He took nearly 4. In that time, Daniel Dubois got disheartened, as he said, and the fight went away from him. He didn't take any points away from Daniel Dubois because he ruled it as accidental. Was there a home advantage? He was the home fighter in front of 40,000 fans. Did that sway the referee? Potentially. Usyk boxed brilliantly in the fight itself, pretty much winning every round. I think there are signs of aging with him. Dubois had the right game plan to go to the body. He was warned more than once, by the way, about blows that were low. It was such a controversial and talked about and debated event, and it split the boxing world, with lots of people who we respect going one way or the other. They probably, I've spoken to Frank Warren today. He will appeal. He's unhappy about the decision. He will go to the WBA and make an appeal on that. They're mounting evidence. That's perfectly within their rights to do so. But I'm not sure it'll be reversed. I think it will stay as a low blow.
Okay. Let me just tell you something that George Fox told me, Don Charles's son, who wasn't there in Poland, but he obviously spoke to his father about this. So he put out on his Instagram, the only way that on the belt is illegal is if the referee clearly stipulates before contest. He told us, as in Don Charles, it was legal for the Dubois-Usyk fight.
What? Because Luis Pabon didn't indicate it during or before the fight.
He didn't. So normally, I'm not 100%, but normally, from what I've seen, referees come in the changing room and they give the instructions to the fighter and the team. He didn't. The video circulated today. I don't know if you've seen it. He didn't make any statement about that. So Don Charles raised the issue, and he just said okay to it. And he didn't also say anything in the ring, which is quite normal for a referee to do. I'm sure everyone's seen it on TV before, where he just indicates what's good and what's not. And
obey my commands at all times, protect yourself at all times, yeah.
Exactly.
And indicates, touches them both, yeah.
So I think they obviously the Queensberry will have a lot of things that they'll send to WBA, but I think their case will be based on what I've just read, and then a photograph of the impact of the shot.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, that if they have the basis for an appeal, then they should do so. Luis Pabon hasn't come out and said he was wrong. Whether he'll be called in front of the WBA and asked.
Interestingly, he's actually on the committee of the WBA, so Frank reckons he's going to have to be away from this case.
Yeah, but he will probably be, obviously he won't be able to be on the committee about it, but he will
get called,
be asked if there's a tribunal on whether he feels he made a mistake in the moment or not. And if he feels he made a mistake, that will maybe give them a chance to annul the decision or at least get a rematch. What we don't know, of course, is if he had ruled it as a body shot, whether Usyk would have just got up and fought on. So there's that as well to consider. There's so many things here to consider. It's like boxing back to its kind of best in a weird way, where we are debating. I mean, not for Daniel Dubois, because he feels that his moment was taken away from him, because you can be ahead after 11 and a half rounds and stop someone, and it's your fight, your title, you become the world champion, and there's great riches in the next fight or few fights that you have. But I think there's been talk of, should there be VAR? Don Charles said to me afterwards there should be VAR in boxing. Well, it will take just as long, if not longer, every time there's a dispute over something, and it will do exactly the same thing. The time it will take to watch it in slow motion, make a decision. Look how long rugby game stops for sometimes, or football stops for them to watch it several times. I know they try and do it as quickly as possible, but it still delays the game and the momentum of the game, and particularly in boxing, you can't take the momentum away. I've got my view on it. I think it was borderline. So he made that decision, but people, I was working with people like Spencer Oliver, told me categorically that I'm wrong. Frank Warren's told me categorically that I'm wrong. I've watched some footage early on that I thought was clearly a low blow, but then I've noticed the footage stops kind of before the impact. I've seen lots of analysis on video in slow motion since, and the hand does seem to land on and below the waist belt and then up. This debate will go on forever. In other words, and both sides have got their arguments on it. Usyk's insisting, how could he have been cheating? Wanting to show afterwards where he was hit. It's a complicated issue. Some people say no, it's not complicated, it's straightforward. But the problem is, some people think it's straightforward a low blow. Some people think it's straightforward, it was an illegal blow. So there's a lot of nuance in between, and a lot of grey area, and a grey area to discuss over this.
And it's not just between the fans; it's people in boxing who are saying it's a low blow, and some people in boxing or categories are saying it's not a low blow.
Carl Froch, Peter Fury, Tony Bellew, David Hay, Carl Frampton, so many guys, all with different views.
Yeah,
all with different views on it. So it's not a black and white decision. It's as simple as that. There's a grey area to this.
Of course, they're appealing to the WBA for one, a no contest to be ruled, and secondly, if that doesn't happen, a rematch. I think from what you just said there earlier, we don't know whether Usyk would have got up or not. So it's very hard to, I think, rule a no contest in that. In fact, impossible, because there's nothing to suggest he wouldn't have got up. But let me ask you, we were both ringside. You were very close to the action. I was very close to the action. Do you think he would have got up? Do you think he was genuinely really hurt?
Usyk was right here about, I think we were in the first row commentating for TalkSport. He was probably 6-7 feet away. My instinct says yes, that he would have got up. 40,000 people there. The referee would have started saying, get up, and started counting him. I think he would have got up and fought on. Would he have been stopped? Potentially. Would he have thrown his hands and hurt Dubois? Yes, potentially. We just don't know. It's pure speculation as to what would have happened. I think he would have got up. Instinctively, I think he would have got up.
I know Daniel's obviously a young guy, especially compared to Usyk, inexperienced, etc. But were you surprised, even though Usyk had about 3.5 minutes to recover, Daniel still had 2.5 minutes to go and finish Alexander Usyk? Were you surprised he didn't really jump on him?
I think he was doing his utmost, but as he said afterwards, he felt like he lost momentum and was a bit disheartened because he felt like he had a legitimate body shot, and yet his opponent was allowed, as you say, nearly 4 minutes, 3 minutes 40, I think it was, or somewhere in that region, to recover and get back up again. Usyk certainly backed off. Why didn't Dubois pour it on him at that point? I don't know. Only Daniel Dubois can answer that, But as he said, he felt disheartened, and that's why he lost momentum. Spencer Oliver said that to me as well, is that, you know, when you scent victory sometimes, when you've been in a situation like that, you want to go straight away, as he explained it. And when the seconds tick away, it can feel like ages before you get back at your opponent, and you can, like, mentally as well as physically, just lose that momentum during the fight.
And
that's
then
why VAR doesn't work. That's why VAR won't work. But retrospective television footage and footage of events should be applicable for appeals, which they are. So that's good.
And just to close off, the other big talking point was, of course, the 9th round where Usyk stopped Daniel Dubois with a stiff jab, but, you know, really a shot that most people thought in that moment he was going to get up from. Do you think he didn't really want to beat the count, Gareth, and he quit?
No, I don't think he quit at all.
Why?
Because it was a long, absorbing, challenging fight for both him and Usyk. People are knocking me for saying that I think stock rose on the night, but I think Daniel Dubois' stock did rise. I think he showed something that we haven't seen before. I thought he showed a lot of courage and guts and bravery and stuck in there. But maybe, you know, as I say, lost momentum after the 5th, and Usyk realised he needed to up his game, and he did. Listen, it was a fascinating, absorbing fight, no doubt about it. Were you not gripped in the entire fight?
Oh, it was fascinating, as you said.
Exactly.
Just on that though, if you're saying, okay, he didn't quit, is what you're saying.
I don't think he quit. No. Stopped. I think he was stopped.
Okay, but
it was a TKO, not a KO. It was a TKO, not a KO, obviously.
Gareth, I look at and now I understand I'm talking about like the elites of the elites here, but I look at someone like Tyson Fury or Deontay Wilder, and if they had got put down in that moment against Alexander Usyk, where one, they weren't injured, and two, they weren't getting peppered. Like Dubois wasn't getting slaughtered in that fight. He was losing the rounds, but it was always in the fight. You always thought he had a puncher's chance.
He was, but it wasn't until the 8th round that he was really hurt, you know?
Right, okay, but with someone like a Fury or Wilder, I think they would have got up.
Yeah, maybe. I think maybe you're right. You know, I mean, Fury's got up 4 times against Wilder, so we can definitely say that. So Wilder's got up and fought back, hasn't he? But it'll be fascinating to be in the Fury camp now. I mean, I haven't really seen much from Fury since the fight. He hasn't really made statements, has he? Which is interesting.
Yeah, no, even Frank, I spoke to him today, and even he admitted, you know, about his own fighter that he's potentially needs some psychological work, and he's only 25 years old. But just because what happened in the Joe Joyce fight, which I thought he was right to go down on a knee, he could have lost his eye, and that could have been his career over.
I agree.
I know against Kevin Lorraine, he suffered a really bad injury, but he did take a knee there. He took a knee twice, was it, on Saturday? And obviously one of them, he didn't make the count. And I just, you know, when it comes to the elite top level, if you want to win unified world titles, you go for everything. But it's easy for us to say, but I'm just saying what we've seen from other fighters at that top level, the grit, determination. He potentially needs to work on that, but he's got time.
Yeah, but I think for 7 rounds we did see a guy who was there. You know, maybe
definitely.
There needs to be more. Maybe there needs to be more from him. There can be more from him. Even going into it, look, it's a massive underdog going into this fight. Massive underdog. Usyk was 10-1 on, I think, with the bookmakers to win this fight. So, you know, I thought he showed real heart and desire. But like you say, in the 8th round, he was down. In the 9th round, yeah, he'd had enough. But I just don't like using the word quitter, you know? Yes, he was beaten, but I don't think he's a quitter. You know, I thought he was very impressive for large periods of that fight. He was very impressive catching Usyk's jab and then jabbing over it. I thought he...
Was that the best performance by a British fighter against Alexander Usyk?
That's a good question. There's an argument to say yes, because Usyk was seriously challenged in that fight. Low blow or not, he was seriously challenged by the power of Dubois. Seriously challenged by it. I mean, only in the 9th round against Anthony Joshua in the second fight was he showing that kind of concern and worry.
Same shot, same referee, funnily enough.
There you go. There you go. Well, we know what Fury's going to do when he fights him, don't we? We know what Wilder would try and do as well. It's not Wilder's shot particularly, but the body shot. But I've said it for a long time. I think Wilder's a very difficult fight for Usyk, and Fury is a very difficult fight for Usyk as well. Usyk's very difficult for a lot of fighters if they let him box. What was interesting on Saturday night was that both men were trying to take the centre of the ring the whole time.
Yeah, I found that quite strange, actually. The ring size, firstly, obviously, this was in Poland, a home promotion for Alexander Usyk. I thought the ring was going to be absolutely massive. It was really small. Bizarre.
It wasn't the biggest ring. I think, was it a 24 foot? I think it was.
Why do you think that was? That was such a strange thing to see.
It was 24 foot and then the ropes inside. Well, because he didn't fear Daniel Dubois.
Do you think there's some sort of do you think maybe he's aging or maybe there was an injury and he doesn't feel like he can move as well as he used to?
I don't know. I mean, I do think there are some signs of aging in him. You know, he's 37 next, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's had a long career. He hasn't got tons of fights left. Yeah, it was a fascinating night. I'm glad for Hamza Shiraz. Yeah. Adam Hamid thought he was going to leap over the ropes, but he didn't. I went through them for a moment. I thought he was going to leap over. It was great to see Naz there last week.
How good is Hamza Shiraz, Gareth, in your opinion?
Well, he's very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. We don't know how good he's going to be yet. He's a rock'em sock'em robot for me. High guard, massive power, and he's a huge middleweight. So it's going to be a fascinating run with him. I think Frank Warren was very pleased with speaking to him afterwards about Shiraz as well. So, you know, he's a very, very interesting character with a lot of interesting characters around him as well. They make a lot of noise around him, don't they?
They certainly do. They believe in him for sure. And hopefully we see that fight with Denzel Bentley one day. Be great to do. Yeah. All right, Gareth, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll speak soon, probably after Smith Eubank.
We will. I'll see you up there.
No, I'm not doing this week, Gareth.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll speak to you. I'll speak to you on Sunday on Zoom. Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. All right, mate.
Cheers.
Not be first.
Do we do enough? Well, I never shut up about it.
It must have been about 16, 17. We nicked their guilt rings. Right, the bouncer's guilt ring.
This is no good for me. That's the reality. If you want the honest truth, and I see it every day,